AI-generated art and graphics? This is Mac Voices. Today's Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices After Dark. Uncensored, off-topic, and always off the wall. MacVoices After Dark is available as a benefit to our Patreon subscribers. Sign up at patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. And this is Mac Voices Live. It's Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time it is, wherever you are. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. You should be here with us in the chat room, but if you can't this time, then be there next week. And if you just can't because you simply live in a time zone where you're sleeping while we do this, these shows do get released to the Mac Voices feed, lightly edited and broken up into pieces a little bit later, so you get to enjoy them even though you can't be here.
Or move.
Yeah, there's a solution. That's good. I like that. I like that. Or just be sleep deprived like the rest of us. I mean, why not?
Yeah, I know some great realtors.
So we have a nice little full house here tonight and a bunch of things to talk about. But a couple things I wanted to do, a couple shout outs I wanted to give before we go. Brittany Smith can't be here with us tonight. She's a little under the weather. So Britt, hope you're feeling better. Jeff Gamet couldn't be here tonight because he's presenting to one of the Colorado Macintosh user groups. So Jeff, good job. Keep up the good work. Jim Ray can't be here tonight because it's his birthday. So
no excuse.
Happy birthday, Jim. And if we will consider singing happy birthday to you, all of us, in After Dark, but we're not going to do it now because we might break YouTube. Brian Flanagan Arthurs can't be here tonight because he's celebrating his wedding anniversary. So Brian, happy anniversary. She put up with you this long. That's good.
Are they connected in some way? The birthday and the anniversary. It's too much of a coincidence.
I don't know. It's just working out that way. And the last one is not for a regular panel member, but Ken Ray has been off air since last week. He came down with COVID. And so today was his first show back, and he still sounds a little rough. So we love you, Ken. We're glad you're feeling better. We missed you. I feel so uninformed during that whole week of your absence. So with that, I have a couple things that I wanted to bring to the table before we get to some of the regular stories. I am back from the 57-year Mission Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, and of course, it was a little weird because of the strike about what they could, the actors could and could not talk about. Several of them, Armin Shimmerman and I can't call it right now. Anson Mount did a great job of trying to explain from the writers and actors' perspectives what the strike is about and why they're so head up over it. One of those things is the use of artificial intelligence and digital copies of and digital creations of actors and that kind of thing, including their voices. So I thought it was really interesting that when they were auctioning off the artwork that had been used for this year's conference, that someone asked who the artist was, and the auctioneer said he goes by two initials, AI.
Wow.
So I just throw it out there. If you can look up the 57-year mission at Creative Entertainment, and hopefully by now I don't think they've taken anything down, and you can get a little bit of sample of some of that artwork. But it was I thought it was a really interesting factor. It was, and probably without the strike, you would have thought, oh, that's cool. But with the strike, it seemed a little strange. So I don't know. Have any of you played with any of the image generators or anything like that?
Mm-mm.
No?
No, but there's an interesting correlation. There's an artist by the name of Howard Chaykin who did a comic book called American Flag back in the 80s, where he must have had a crystal ball looking into the future for this, because the main character is an actor who gets replaced on his TV show by computer-generated images. And so his only training is being a Plexus Ranger. So that's what he goes out and does instead of being an actor. And as soon as I heard about the actors strike and one of the some of the things that they were looking at and fighting about, that was like the very first thing that came to mind that this was something that was foretold in a comic book back in 1985 or 1986.
I think it really is interesting that just that happened. That that this and I was anxious to see if any of you guys did it. And Webb, thank you very much, because I just dove right in after doing all the shout outs. I forgot to introduce the panel. So, geez, yes, I am sleep deprived. It was a good time, but I'm sleep deprived. So let's go around there and then we'll pick this conversation back up. So the guy commenting was Guy Serle. Guy,
hi, Chuck. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. David Ginsburg is out of position on my screen. He's in the upper right-hand corner tonight. I don't know how to act.
Yeah, well, I had to build a new chair, which I'm sitting in right now, so that kind of delayed me getting here earlier. So, but I'm.
You had to build the chair?
Yeah, this is a brand new chair I'm sitting in.
You mean put together? You didn't build the chair.
I'm sorry, put together.
Okay, for a second I was going to be really impressed by the hand stitching and everything.
Yeah, well,
stone knives and bear claws is what he had to use.
Yeah, but good to be here.
Good to have you. Ben Roethig is here as well. Ben, good to have you.
Good to be here. And Guy, I am now hungry because you said bear claw.
Sorry. Elephant ears, is that better?
Not really. No. I hadn't thought about being hungry until you said it, Ben. No, thank you very much. Eric Bolden is here, still hanging out in the Zen garden.
Yeah.
Eric, good to have you.
I was doing well until all that food mention, but it's State Fair week in Wisconsin, so I'm gonna go wander around at the fair and pick up samples of all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's been deep fried, right?
Of course.
Yeah. There's
even the oil is deep fried.
There's a list. There's nothing like bacon wrapped
Twinkies,
bratwurst. Twinkies are good too. Yeah.
Deep fried.
Now I want to be in West Dallas.
Bacon wrapped Twinkies.
Yeah.
I got a show title.
Let's see here. 151 to 94. 94
$1 million
takes me right
idea.
to the fairgrounds.
I guarantee Eric's just going to send us a picture from the bacon wrap deep fried Twinkie booth.
I hope so, because
see, I want a link. I don't want pictures. I want links.
That sounds kind of good. I don't know about the deep fried part, but maybe never mind. Kelly Guimont's here. Kelly, good to have you.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, we haven't seen you for a little while.
Yeah. I was traveling. I was out and about. I went to DC for a week for work. And the week before that, I was at the Penn State Mac Admins conference. So.
Wait a minute. You were in DC and then you went to Penn State?
Uh-huh. Well, no, the other way around. But yeah.
You had to drive almost right by my house.
I didn't know that, or we would have stopped.
Okay. Well, next time.
Yeah. Next summer, when I go to Penn State, I will absolutely make sure that we stop.
Yeah, please do, because I'm just trying to think, to go from DC to Penn State, you almost certainly had to come up Route 81, I would think.
I believe you.
Yeah. And so that's just a stone's throw from where I am. So there you go.
I have no idea. I was not the person
Route
driving.
15.
I was knitting socks the entire time, so I don't know.
Yeah. A guy, you're right. She could have come up 15, which would have been even closer to my house. So
yeah.
Webb
Take
Bixby is
270
here.
until it runs out, and then you're on 15.
Yeah. Webb Bixby is here with an aerial view of his hometown.
Chuck, good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to explain? You were saying in the pre-show. Can you explain what we're seeing behind you?
Oh, that's downtown Kansas City. I have a condominium on the north side of Kansas City, and that's just a view off the balcony looking towards the city. So that's downtown Kansas City.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yes. The big question is the foreground KCMO or KCKS?
No, if you're looking at that picture, Kansas City, Kansas is going to be on my right. So going to be that way.
Mhm.
So that's Missouri there. Kansas is over there.
Good to have you, Webb.
Thank you.
Mark Fuccio, you're usually the guy with the background. I think Webb's trying to give you some competition.
Competition is good. All competition is welcome. I recognize the St. Louis Skyline from a cross-country drive
Kansas
2
City.
years ago, where we went through, Kansas City.
So what is your background tonight, Mark?
Oh, Sonoma County, another Sonoma theme.
Oh, okay. So you just got Sonoma on the brain.
I'm waiting. It will stop. It will stop once something happens. From Cupertino in terms of release to the world. But until then, we're just anxiously waiting.
Good deal. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Well, I jumped the gun a little bit on AI generated art. Anybody have any thoughts on that? I know I didn't see anybody say they played with it. I think we've all played with some of the large language models, but I haven't. I've played just a little bit with some of the images, but our image creation software. And now seeing what I saw, it makes me want to go play a little more and see just what I can get out.
I think all of us have a little bit in, anything that you do that can be considered, photoshopping as a verb. A certain amount of that is sort of the beta version of what AI can do for you now, but it starts with an A, and I'm not going to remember the name of it. I want to say it's Aurora, and I don't think that's right. Was a previous iteration of photo editing software where you have a beautiful photo, but you've got power lines through it. You made this great picture, but you want to get the power line out of it. You can take the little stamp and go over the power line, and then it will take the power line out of the picture for you. And that's the same sort of thing, because it's not necessarily generating something new, but it's trying to recreate what would be there if the power line wasn't in the middle of your photo. And that's a very similar thing. It's less sophisticated, but it's a very similar thing to what the AI part of art generation, like not generative, but like in retouching and repairing pictures and things. That's kind of where some of that AI would be really nice. I haven't seen a good case made for doing it instead of having a person do it yet. I haven't found that particular thing. So I haven't spent a lot of time with it. I'm also, as much as I enjoy various art in various formats, I'm not a very artistic person. So I would have to lean really heavily on something like AI just to get a stick figure that I could draw and then not have to show it to you and go, look, it's a stick figure. See, there's the head and there's the arms and there's because that's about the level of my drawing ability. So it'd be great for someone like me, but I haven't seen a place where it makes sense to do that. And that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I've just looked for all kinds of different applications of it and not found anything except we took this AI model and created this artwork to freak you out. Did it work? Like, that's the only thing I've seen for most of it so far.
I've seen a couple folks playing with it when it first came out, or when some of the things first became publicly available, where they put themselves as an astronaut on the moon, or different versions of someone, and that was really interesting. At MacStock, it got really out of hand one night when there was a piece of software for the phone that people were using to create AI images or alter images of themselves. It gave me like 5 versions of me, including one that's female, which was deeply disturbing.
Says who?
And why isn't that hosting tonight? That's what I want.
Yeah.
Well, no, that photo has been destroyed. Yeah, put it mildly. But it's an interesting toy to play with. But if you were making your living at it, I can see how you would want to be very careful about signing away your rights to it, because it's going to do nothing but get better. So the strike, we weren't going to, not going to talk about the strike, but I think for folks to go out and understand a little bit why it's such an important thing.
And I think what's next is the part that is the most concerning, because we don't know.
Yeah.
And given the things that you can see already, like deepfake, which is the first wave of stuff that went around to freak everybody out. That's one of the ways that this stuff is being used. And, for every, for everything, like a tool is a tool, right? But if you don't go about developing that tool and start from the very beginning with a perspective on how people could be using it who have
misusing it,
nefarious intent. Like, what happens if a bad actor gets a hold of this, whatever it is you're working on? What happens if somebody uses this in a way that I don't want? And, and I don't mean like, I'm going to say GIF and you disagree that that's how it's said. I mean, like, ill-gotten money, ill-gotten files, ill-gotten information, ill-gotten passwords, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of those things, because that's one of the things we hear now, right? Like, when you answer the phone, if it's an unknown number, don't say hello, because as soon as you say hello, they can take your voice and run with it. And now somebody's calling my mom pretending to be me in jail and needs Western Union to send a 6-digit number of dollars immediately to a bank in the Cayman Islands because reasons, and I'm in jail, right? But it sounds like me. So like all these kinds of things, a lot of what's getting lost in this initial wave of learning model is, if this is what we can teach it now, where's it going to go? And I understand, in the interest of full disclosure, this is the part where I tell you I hosted a podcast about 4 seasons of Westworld. And every year, all we said was, I really don't want it to be a documentary. And every year we would get the little supplemental materials or whatever. And they would say, we set this in the future and it's supposed to look made up, but I don't think anyone, like Jonah Nolan, like every season said, I don't think people watching Westworld appreciate how close we are to some of the things that you see on the show. And that is the thing that I hear in my head every time another one of these comes out. Every time there's a new one of these models and a new iteration of one, it was GPT-4 and now it's going to be GPT-5 or GPT-6 or whatever. And figuring out what can happen with it next is the part that nobody's kind of stopping and thinking about. And I think that's the part that should really worry everybody, not just what it can do now.
Well, Kelly, we've all seen some of the deepfake stuff already. That and it's usually applied to well-known celebrities, and so but we are starting to fast approach, because of the voice capabilities and the deepfake capabilities, where did politician A really say that, or did politician B really say that? So yeah, it's a slippery slope. And again, and to be fair, the politicians make their money off of their faces and their voices in a lot of cases. So they have some of the same concerns that the actors are expressing. And with them, it's not a case of them being able to sign or not sign over the rights to it. It's right. Just somebody's taking it and then using it for, as you said, nefarious purposes.
Yeah.
So,
well, and the other piece of this is that, there's the thing that a lot of them don't have is any sort of guardrail. Like, there's no way to opt out on a lot of these. Like, if you have an image on your website, say you're a photographer. I went to a meetup over the weekend that was photographers and went on a photo walk, and we were all, walking around and taking pictures and stuff. And if I took those pictures and I put them on my website and someone decided they wanted to feed my website to their learning model and use the pictures that I took, there's not an easy way, a clearly defined way for me to go, that's not happening. I want out. I don't want to be part of that learning model. And that's the part that I think we're never going to get over, and we're never going to get around, because the people responsible for those don't understand that there could be people or information or images or any other, text, anything that people would not want to share in order to feed the models and make them smarter and better and, taller, thinner, better looking, whatever. And that's the part that I think we're never going to get around, because the people who are doing this are really myopic in their view of what needs to be there. Like on Facebook, when it's like, why don't you want to check in every place and share your location with the free world? Because nobody thought about, I'm a person who lives by myself, and I don't think it's a good idea to broadcast the fact that I'm not home. Like basic things like that, like don't seem to occur to other people who are not taking into account that there are other people who have points of views that are not their
own. Or they don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny.
That's a separate conversation, Guy.
What you're describing is exactly what happened to me at MacStock. Now, I want to say clearly that, this was all in fun, and I wasn't upset, and I'm not upset now. So none of that. I mean, it was a bunch of geeks getting together and playing with the tech toys. Okay. But somebody took a photo of me that I didn't consent to, didn't even know had been taken. And that's what they used to generate the model. Now, again, it's everybody's laughing about it, and that's fine. But, if you stop and think, okay, if I had been in a different situation where I didn't want to have my photo taken and have it manipulated. And so, that's something that we were all sitting there taking each other's pictures and playing with it. And that's, again, that's clearly consent. The particular picture they used of me, I think, how did they say it? One guy employed another guy as his agent to get my picture. And so, that
paparazzi.
Well, there you go, Guy.
Well, I mean,
paparazzi.
Yeah.
So,
closed circuit television, cameras, in Europe and in the UK, like out in all the public spaces where people are just out walking around. And by virtue of going to the store, you've been recorded somewhere. And, there's going to come a point when those models are smart enough that, that big camera that stares right at you when you walk into the grocery store, somebody can take that and make you the star of the next Star Wars movie, if they felt like it. And maybe there's nothing you can do about that. And maybe for some people, it's not a problem, but maybe for other people, it's huge.
Has anybody seen the new Mission Impossible movie? Okay, then we're not going to get into that.
I did see it.
Okay, you did see it, Guy?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe we can have a conversation offline, because I do not want to do any spoilers for any of the other panel members or the audience. But, there's things that the only thing I will say is, if you remember the unfortunate incident in Las Vegas where they had the shooter, and, they were able to track him around Las Vegas after the fact by the security cameras, that's a very real thing.
Yeah.
So, to what degree or how often or how quickly, so just some interesting stuff that, as technology people, both all of us and the viewers and listeners, you should be aware of that these are very real world concerns that now we're having to figure out. And it's starting to affect a lot of people's daily lives, and in some industries, their livelihoods. So pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, the theme of the 21st century is technology making it to market before we know the legal and moral ramifications of it.
Don't you think that's been sort of the way it's gone, though, Ben? I mean, think about ripping CDs, or duplicating, or go the whole way back to cassette tapes or reel to reel, and the ability to copy from one to the other. And nobody really appreciated just how any of those could transform the music industry. And then you get into pirating video and pirating software, and on and on and on. So, it seems like the legal parts, and sometimes the moral and ethical parts, are way behind the technology.
They absolutely are, because people aren't thinking about the ethical in, look at this cool thing I did with 4 lines of code or whatever.
Yeah.
Like people, and then even if they are, like, to use the image at the grocery store example, like I know people who have a vested interest in not having that information available. They've been stalked. They've been cyber stalked. They've been, they have a vested interest in making sure that there are people in the world who have absolutely no idea where they are and what they are doing and where they normally go. And having that information available in any format can be a problem. And if you are a person who has never had that experience, and it doesn't matter to you if somebody knows that you go to the grocery store every Tuesday afternoon, that's fine. But your experience is not the only experience. I mean, this is nowhere near as impactful to me personally, but I have a reasonably low voice for a female person. And the S lady is the first time I could talk to an automated thing and it actually heard me. Because until that moment, until the iPhone 4S, if I called up and got an auto attendant and tried to tell it anything, they couldn't hear me. None of them were ever able to respond to me. And 2 different times, I remember people saying, oh, right, well, you're female and it has a hard time with female voices. And you know why that is? Because nobody had a woman on the team that built that melon farming auto attendant. Because if there had been one, she would have said, it never hears me. And that would have been accounted for. And it wasn't. And so maybe she didn't get it right 100% of the time when they rolled her out on the iPhone 4S. But you know what? At any moment, even if it was wrong, the S lady knew what I was saying, knew that I was saying something. Maybe couldn't parse it, but knew that I was talking and that it needed to take some sort of action. And that was the first time that ever happened for me. And so to me, it was actually a revolutionary experience because at least I finally had something that could get it wrong. Because before that, it was just nothing at all in so many cases. And the number of people, and of course I say this going on and on while my voice is still kind of bad because I got sick and I'm recovering. But the thing that baffles me about all of this is something very basic like that. Or I'm left-handed, and the amount of things in the world that are designed where no one ever thinks, what if the person doing this does not use their right hand, doesn't have a right hand? How is somebody supposed to navigate this thing in a slightly different way? And nobody gave that any consideration. In the amount of time that happens, and I know there are people on the panel with me who could probably rattle some of those examples off, is fascinating. And again, not as impactful as I am a person whose physical well-being depends on that of other people. On other people not knowing where I am or not knowing what I'm doing. There are people who should not have that information. Like, this is not a fundamental safety issue, but the fact that it happens on that level means that it continues on a much, much larger scale, exactly like that. And the fact that nobody stops and goes, wait a minute, what if my experience is not the only experience?
Yeah. Mark, Webb, Eric, you guys have been kind of quiet through this discussion. Any thoughts from any of your perspectives? Does this concern you, or is it
Well, I'd refer back to the Hollywood strike, because I think that I've read, I've heard the similar thing about, I guess they're worried about a lot of actors or maybe stand-ins that they're being asked to give away their rights to all sorts of feature. And to me, that's an example of sort of an overly broad ask, or bordering on, I don't know exactly if it's how it's been brought up, but it's like you go out and you get a job, you're an extra or you're a star in a particular movie, period. That's it. End of discussion. It should be that for all future things, they have to pay a royalty, and it shouldn't matter if it's you're using your flesh and blood or if you're using an image that is manipulated using AI and ML techniques to look like you should be paid for that. So in that regard, I in high sympathy with the actors. The writer's strike, I really don't know a lot about what the issues are, but I think that AI is going to be really useful tools. And what I've seen, and the people I know who are using a Chat GPT, it's really great for just mind-numbing, boring text, like most corporate IT sites. Where you just need something and you kind of convey some sort of message, and it really doesn't have to be creative or inspired or point on. And I think that's where a difference is with a lot of what talented scriptwriters do, is they create stories that actually move and excite people and touch them emotionally. And I don't think we've seen anything yet that Chat GPT can produce that anyone would claim that it has that level of capability. So as I say, I don't understand quite what their issues are, but we'll see what happens. This is, I think, a fundamental turning point in this industry. And I think also historically, the Hollywood studios have a legacy of just years and years and years of bad karma on them. It seems like the whole industry is built upon level by level by level, where each level tries to screw and take advantage of the one below it. For example, way back when LGB, Lyndon Johnson's LJB, his top aide, Sam Valenti, when Johnson left, he went to the MPAA. And what's the first thing he got passed as a lobbyist? Some change in the tax laws, which allows what studios do now is a movie becomes a corporation. And all the payment it makes to directors and stars and things, if they're smart and adverse, it gets paid above the line, so-called, above the profit line. And, they would, one of the classic things that Hollywood studios would do to take advantage of writers. And I think, that's in the street term, that's called screw the writers. But, I think in polite society, we say it's take advantage of them, is they'd say, oh, well, we'll give you, 5% of the profits. Well, guess what? They at that point they knew who the Mark and the Patsy was, because movies never show profits. All the money gets leached out, above the line well in advance. So interesting diversion, but bring it back. I think yes, I think these image generation tools and voice generation tools are going to get continually better. Apple, there's been a bunch of mentions on them recently about what they will do, for generating your own voice. So you will have to watch it. It's interesting technology moving ahead at a rapid rate.
Webb?
I was just going to kind of strap yourself in and go for the ride. I go back to when QuickTime, and so I'm talking early 90s, maybe late 80s, and they just started doing the QuickTime streaming. And I was on a dial-up connection, and I was sitting in my office, and I got to some classical radio station in Germany, over dial-up, and it was cutting up and lagging and just doing all the things. It was terrible. And I was showing it to someone. They go, "So what?" And I says, "The point is not how good is it now, is that they got the foundation. It's going to get better." So regarding the chat AI type stuff and all the other offshoots, as Mark said, and Kelly too, it's going to continue to get better. And I do have some concerns about false imposters. And from a business standpoint, that has me concerned. So it's in its infancy. It's going to get better. We got to be cautious of it, but I don't know what I'm getting afraid of right now. I do agree that as we look at the writer strike, I think that's a little bit different issue because aside from the chat, the AI aspects of it, also the aspects of some of the other things about the streaming and the multiple methods of how content is distributed. I think that's a separate issue than what you're talking about right now. But I can see the concerns about it. I think some people are a little overreacting to it just yet. You don't want to handicap it or before it gets somewhere. So anyway, it's interesting from a business standpoint. In my business, I do have some concerns. Not sure what I'm concerned about just yet, but it could get ugly. So,
yeah,
could be used improperly. I'll put it that way.
The panel finishes up our conversation about computer-generated art and graphics before digging into the issue of Zoom using your conversations to train their large language model. What does it mean for Zoom? What does it mean for you? And what does it mean in the broader perspective? That's next time on Mac Voices. I hope you'll join us. As always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.